shopping and was too lazy to write up a shopping list, it happens that every time you always forget to buy the things you intended for. Or during a public speaking event, you always forget to say the most important part of the speech. Wouldn't it be great if there was a way to help us remember everything? We invite you to unravel the secret of Sherlock Holmes' memory technique, which is used by world memory champions like Dominic O'Brien. Although his talent makes up only parts of his success, the technique he uses is something we all can do. By just understanding a little bit about how our brains work and using your sensory perception with location, we can unlock the secret of the memory palace technique. In the 1940s, scientists presumed that memories occur when specific groups of neurons are reactivated. In the brain, any stimulus results in a particular pattern of neural activity. Certain neurons become active, be it the memories of faces that we know, or the smell of freshly baked bread from the oven, the songs we've heard during your childhood years, the taste of your mother's cooking, or even the feeling of softness from the pillows you sleep on at night. The more stimulus takes place in the brain that simmers with activity, the more strengthened connections are formed between these neurons. During the late 1960s, American psychologists Richard Atkins and Richard Schifrin stated that memory processes using three components. 1. The sensory perception, 2. Working memory, and 3. Long-term memory. The first part is the sensory perception, which receives information from the external environment stimuli through our five senses, be it sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Information received will be sent to be processed by our working memory, which acts like a telephone. Every time we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch, it will call other parts in our long-term memory to ask what this thing is. You might be surprised that humans have such an incredible visual memory of location and familiar places, which helps us retain information into our long-term memory. For example, when you visit new strange places, ones that you have never been before, when you look around the house that you've never been to, you'll notice within minutes that you'll be able to recognize the placement of different furnitures in the house of each room. Your brain picks up on these information fast at different places and locations. That is because human memory is designed to remember places and locations best. Dating back to the prehistoric times when we needed to survive in the wild, we have to know the location of where to find food, which paths are dangerous, and which can lead us back home safely. Therefore, human brains have the ability to remember places easiest by emphasizing information into imagery, then laying down the details.
Our ancestors never needed a vast memory for names or numbers, but they did need a memory for how to get back home from the 3-day deer hunt or for the location of those plump blueberries on the rocky slopes to the south of the camp. These evolutionary needs helped lock in a superior where things are and how they look memory system.
One study found that participants that were shown 2,560 photographic stimuli for 10 seconds each, their performance exceeded 90%, indicating retention of over 2,000 items.
As you're probably beginning to understand, memory is only part of learning and developing expertise, but it's often an important part. It may surprise you to learn that we have outstanding visual and spatial memory systems that can help form part of our long-term memory. Here's what I mean. If you were asked to look around a house you'd never visited before, you'd soon have a sense of the general furniture layout, where the rooms were, color scheme, the pharmaceuticals in the bathroom cupboard. In just a few minutes, your mind would acquire and retain thousands of new pieces of information. Even weeks later, you'd still hold far more in your mind than if you'd spent the same amount of time staring at a blank wall. Your mind is built to retain this kind of general information about a place. You can greatly enhance your ability to remember if you tap into these naturally supersized visual spatial memorization abilities.
Because the brain has an excellent ability to remember places, the technique corresponding to this ability is the memory palace technique. This technique was formerly known as the memory loci, a Latin word meaning memory and place. This technique dates back to the ancient Greeks, adopted by Simonides, and has been continued up to the Renaissance period. Memory palace is a skill that anyone can practice using places together with objects that we want to remember. This type of mnemonics will help us to remember the things we want to in harmony with objects and places we are familiar with, in order to form imageries in our minds.
The memory palace technique is a particularly powerful way of grouping things you want to remember. It involves calling to mind a familiar place, like the layout of your house, and using it as a sort of a visual notepad where you can deposit the concept images that you want to remember. All you have to do is call to mind the place you're familiar with, your home, your route to school, or your favorite restaurant, and voila! In the blink of an imaginative eye, this becomes the memory palace that you'll use as your notepad. The memory palace technique is useful for remembering unrelated items, such as a grocery list, milk, bread, eggs. To use the technique, you might imagine a gigantic bottle of milk just inside your front door, the bread plopped on the couch, and a cracked egg dribbling off the edge of the coffee table. In other words, you'd imagine yourself walking through a place you know well, coupled with shockingly memorable images of what you want to remember.
There are 5 steps to the memory palace technique. 1. Choose your location. It should be an environment or a place that you're most familiar with. Such place must be one that you can visualize best, such as the entrance to your house, the hallway to your classroom, or the pathway to your office. 2. List items along the route. When you have your place chosen, the next step is to create a visualized pathway in your head. For example, the starting point is the doorway of the house. When you walk in, what furniture do you see next? What does the different objects look like along the way? 3. Imprint in your memory. This is a step when you have to remember the place you've chosen, the pathway, and the things along the way. You have to think about the path that is going through the place, knowing the placement of furniture or individual items, which comes first and which follows, including thinking about the smell and sound of each object, such as the smell of food or the sound of music with specific details to stimulate your memory, or even the feel and touch of certain objects, like the softness of the couch that you sit on, or the fluffiness of your dog's fur. You should practice to visualize this path on both the way there and back until you have got it down 100%. 4. Matching things. After remembering the order of the things in the place that you have chosen, next, let us bring on what you want to remember, such as vocabulary words, match with each item in order. Remember, the more bizarre and vivid the imagery is, the more you'll be able to remember it better. 5. Explore your memory palace. In this step, you must remember all the items in order along with pairing of different objects. At the beginning, this will be a little bit difficult, but as you practice little by little, going back and forth along the path, it will get easier. To make those imagery stick, try using the 5 senses to incorporate and make up a story. For example, opening the refrigerator to find a submarine-shaped cake and sticking your finger into it to taste the incredibly sweet frosting. Or putting your hand on a volcano-shaped lamp and suddenly the hot lava exploded out from it. Sherlock Holmes believes that people can learn to enhance their memories to the next level by using the memory or mind palace. In his investigations, he uses this technique. He compares a brain to an empty room in the attic with limited space, where you must place the objects you choose along with the furniture in it. Dominic O'Brien, a world memory champion who can memorize 54 decks of cards in sequential order. That is 2,808 cards, and he does this by only looking at each card once. The number pi is a mathematical constant, approximately equals to 3.14, which is expressed as the circle's circumference to its diameter, where it's irrational numbers containing almost infinite digits. People who can recite the value of pi are ordinary people with extraordinary memories. Here are some examples of these ordinary people with extraordinary memories. The Guinness World Book record has recorded that in 1989, Hideaki Tomoyori of Japan recited 40,000 digits of pi. Later in 2005, Chao Lu from Changchi, China recited 67,890 digits. And in 2015, Ravi Meena from India is the one who can recite pi values up to 70,000 digits. Moreover, there are also many other achievers from around the world employing the memory palace technique, showing that human memory capacity is limitless. In a nutshell, human memory begins with the sensory memory, which receives information through sight, smell, taste, sound, and touch. You have to start by improving your visualization skills, connecting them with significant memories. Since we remember locations and places best, you have to choose the most familiar place to create a memory palace and make connections to things you want to remember and form a story. There are 5 steps to creating a memory palace. 1. Choose your location. 2. List items along the way. 3. Imprint in your memory. 4. Match your objects. And 5. Explore your palace. Remember, the more bizarre you create these imageries, you'll be able to remember it. Connecting places and feelings with the 5 senses will make those memories unforgettable. Lastly, you should practice to visualize this imagery pathway both on the way there and back until you get it down 100%.